Hi, this is The Recovering Perfectionist. I'm Claire Barton and you're in the right place at the right time. If you're starting to feel like some of your perfectionism is really getting in the way of you moving forward, getting started or finishing anything, this is absolutely the right show for you. This is rehab for your perfectionism, baby, so grab yourself a glass of wine or a cuppa and let's get stuck into it. I'm here with the lovely Leah Kearns, the soul startup entrepreneur. Hi, Leah.
Hi, Claire.
Hi, great to have you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. So I just want to tell everyone a little bit about how we know each other and how we, all the sort of bits and pieces that we've had to do with each other up until now. So I think the first time that we had anything to do with each other was about a year ago, maybe a little less. And you were my avatar interviewee when I was doing some market research.
Yes, I remember it well.
Excellent. So we did that, and then I think we did a planning session in return for that, and then shortly thereafter I signed up for a beautiful session with you. I think it was supposed to go for about an hour. I think it ended up going for more like 3, and I cried a lot during and definitely lots after, lots of revelations and aha moments, and you completely blew my mind, and since then I've had a complete biz girl crush on you. So
thank you.
Out in the open. You know how I feel about you.
Love it. Love you.
Oh, thanks. So in that session, I just want to share a little story because I think it's a really interesting, and it's kind of come about quite beautifully with the podcast and the show starting. So in that session, I was feeling a bit like, oh, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my business? I felt like I wasn't quite in the right position, and I wasn't quite going in the right direction that I wanted to be going. So you kind of did the intuitive business reading, which was completely a new idea to me. I'd never heard of it before, and it was kind of all beautiful and new. And one thing that we sort of got talking about, I was like, well, I've got 2 little kids. My husband works away 3 out of 4 weeks. I've got 2 or 3 businesses on the bubble. I've got a really active social life. Like, people are always like, hey, Claire, how do you get it all done? And I'm like, I don't know, I just get it done because I've got efficiencies and I've got systems and I've got tools and apps and all of that sort of thing. And I've got an iPhone, so of course I can manage my life. And I thought that's what it was about. And you were like, no. You don't have to be the pin-up girl for I got my shit together. That's not who you are. And I'm going like this. Oh, yeah, okay. And I'm thinking, yes, I am. I am. Yeah, all right. Yeah, no, you're right. And he said, no, you're more like the poster girl for I don't have my shit together and I don't really know what I'm doing, but that's cool as well. Like I'm doing stuff and I'm busy and I'm trying things out and all of this sort of thing. And I was nodding my head, but I'm thinking, no. I'm the pin-up girl for I got my shit together because I got my shit together. And then there were some other things that happened in there. And then about, I guess, 2 months ago when I was finally felt like I was ready to do something with this show, I'd been sort of mulling over exactly what was the theme and exactly what was the title going to be and how it was all going to work. And I came up with this amazing idea. Of, in inverted commas, of I'm going to call it Ain't No Poster Girl. I wrote it down. I told people, I was like, I've come up with my title for my podcast. It's called Ain't No Poster Girl. And it was 2 days later and I went, hang on a minute, that wasn't my idea. Leah told me this 6 months ago. And I completely had forgotten about it. And then I'm like, oh, she knew all along. That's always what was going to happen. And then it's evolved a little bit to become the Recovering Perfectionist, but it's the same message, right? It's that I don't actually have it all. I don't have my shit together. I've got lots of stuff together, but it's not perfect. It's not beautiful. There's not a pretty bow on it, but I'm getting stuff done and I'm moving forward and I'm having fun and I'm trying things out. So
beautiful.
Basically, thanks for knowing what I was doing 6 months before I did and giving me a bit of a push and a bit of a nod from the universe to say, yes, this is the right direction and this is the message that I need to get out. So yay for intuitive business, Leah.
Yeah. Well, Claire, all of that was just a reflection of what you were showing me. And that's how the process works. There's no special magic or awesome little touch that I have that you can't have for yourself and that you aren't showing me in that process. And it's just that I'm a little bit more, let's compare it to going to the gym, right? I've been going to the gym a little bit longer than what you have. So my muscles are a little bit more toned. Mm-hmm. And that's really the only difference. It's no great secret skill. There's no magic mystery to it. although it can seem really elusive, it really is something that can be accessed by everybody, you know. And I guess since that time, you've actually started to see for yourself where it's showing up for you too. And I guess that's kind of what's brought us to have this conversation today.
Very interesting. And I think the other part of this, I mean, there's so many things that I could say about the funny little workings of the universe and of how relationships and communication works. But for anyone listening, you know this story. But when I was starting to form up the podcast and the show, I literally was sitting down and I had written a list of maybe 6 or 7 topics that I wanted to discuss with someone. I didn't really know who and all of that sort of thing. So I'd written them down. It's in an Excel spreadsheet. It's in my beautiful master content plan. Of course, it's in an Excel spreadsheet. It's kind of my jam. And I had written intuition versus fear ? With a space next to it for someone's name to go in when I figured out who it was. And the next day I was listening to your webinar. I have to, sneaky confession, I was tapping away doing a few other things and multitasking whilst listening. But about 3/4 of the way through the webinar, you said something that was the words intuition or fear. I think I had a pen in my hand. I dropped my pen. I sat back in my chair and my hands went up and I just about started bawling. My eyes got all misty and I'm like, what just happened? You and I have had so many conversations, but that topic itself had never come up. So it's not like it was a thing that was, you know, in my mind already. And so that was, of course, went back to my Excel spreadsheet and put your name in and was like, yeah, well, we have to talk about it, obviously. So it's something that I don't know, for various reasons over the last 6 months has been in my mind about, you know, something will happen and I'll think, is that an intuition? Should I be listening to this message or to this gut feeling? Or is it just that I've got a fear about it? You know, is something bad about to happen or am I just afraid of something happening? And if I concentrate not too much on that fear, am I going to manifest something bad happening and all that sort of thing? So I'm just really interested in the topic. Flex your muscles. Tell us about it. Tell us your beautiful words around the topic.
Yeah, so I guess for me, where it started from was that I was boarding a plane in Brisbane, coming back from seeing my dad one time. This was probably about 4 years ago, I guess. And what happened was I was standing, waiting to board the plane, and then they make the announcement. We're having engineering difficulties and the flight's going to be delayed, right? And instantly my mind's like, don't get on the plane, right? And I think that this is quite a common situation for people where they just really have something that comes up all of a sudden and it kicks in for them. And the thing was how it felt to me. It felt very intimidating. It felt very, the word I want to use is contractive, right? Fear itself is very contractive, right? And so in that moment, this was prior to me starting to do this work. Back then I was working in corporate. I was working, 50 hours, 60 hours a week. I was a strategy consultant in customer experience and technology for a shopping center developer. I wasn't tuned in knowingly at all, right? But I was still getting the subtleties of, is this intuition or is this fear? Because it's a very expensive decision to make, right? Get on the flight or don't get on the flight. Right. And I was with my family, right? I was with my brother and my sister. And all of a sudden I'm getting this, don't get on the flight. So I really wanted to start understanding for myself what that really meant. But I had no idea where to even begin with it. So it was really this gradual process of firstly just seeing that it was there, seeing that it was coming up for me. And it just really felt like this very firm voice, but it was almost like it had an intimidation to it. And so for me, I just wanted to get to the bottom of what that was about. And that's kind of where it started for me and where this journey of understanding the difference between fear and intuition and exploring intuition for myself and what it meant for me really started from.
So did you get on the flight?
I did get on the flight, actually.
Yeah,
I did, because it was an interesting, I guess, resolution to it, right? Because it felt, yes, I felt the fear, but I also felt once the initial moment had passed, I felt like it was going to be okay for some reason, right? And sitting there with my brother and sister who were they're very logical people as well, it really made me check in with what my current real life situation was in front of me, like what my current reality really was, what the chances of this flight falling out of the sky was, or something happening with this plane. And so I guess there was a little bit of intellectual, cerebral processing that jumps in and sort of calculates the odds for me.
Your logic.
Yeah, my logical mind, right? Calculates the odds for me and tells me, nah, you're fine, go ahead. And my husband, who I didn't know at the time, but since that time I've explained this story to him, and he used to work in aviation, and in particularly in engineering for commercial aircraft and military aircraft. Right. And he said to me, you know, you've got more chance of having an accident on the way to the airport than what you do in the plane, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden that logic gives me evidence that this is going to be all right. And it's not the last time that I've actually had thoughts like that jump in. Right? And those sorts of thoughts come up for me every day to be dealing with, whether it's trying this new thing in my business, or whether it's driving this particular way to work, or whether it's seeing a loved one and having this foregone conclusion that, you know, their plane's dropped out of the sky with them in it. All this kind of stuff, these fears, which seem completely irrational, they jump up out of nowhere. So I think it's really important for me to understand and differentiate between what is actually fear and therefore a contractive experience, and what is actually intuition. And intuition is very much more an expansive feeling, an expansive experience.
Interesting. And I think when you were talking about it on the webinar, and you touched on it a bit then, that you were saying that intuition will never intimidate you, or that's not what it's kind of there for. So can you tell us like how does that happen?
Yeah. So how it comes through for me in particular, and it is individual for everybody. And I think this is where you really need to start to observe it for yourself, how it comes to you. The tone in which it comes through to me is never intimidating. It never is nasty to me. Like, that's sort of self-criticism talk. That's not intuition. The voice that is oh, you're not good enough for this, and that's showing up as a feeling of fear for you. Like, you shouldn't be the person to speak about that stuff. That's not intuition, right? That's the mind trying to keep you safe. That's its job, right? Its job is to make sure that if you're getting run after by a saber-toothed tiger, that you're going to run away, or you're going to pull out a big red steak, or, you know, something to fix the tiger. That's the job, right? That's how the human body is wired.
Right.
So it really is about understanding that it won't be nasty to you. It won't talk in a mean voice. Sometimes it is very firm, like particularly if it is kicking in for a safety situation, it can be quite firm, but it won't be panicked. It won't be giving you this feeling of run for your life.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And is there a difference between intuition and fear intuition and fear for stuff that's happening for yourself and for stuff that's happening for loved ones or strangers, or like, is there a kind of a scale, or is it all sort of relevant? And
yeah, that's a great question actually, because a lot of people will feel, particularly with people who are close to them, will feel like the emotions of what other people feel, right? So when I go to a room, say it's a networking event, that can often be quite overwhelming for me, because the subtle energy that exists all around of us is something that's very accessible to me because of the muscles being so strong in the way that they are, right?
All that time in the gym, gotcha.
Yeah, all the time pressing on the bench. So basically what happens then is that it's almost like I've turned on my internal light and all this stuff around me is moths. So all of a sudden these moths are attracted to this light. Right? So it's a bit like that when we talk about the feelings and thoughts of our loved ones around us. And so all of a sudden, if my husband is sitting with me and he's feeling very anxious about something at work, or something that's just happened, like in the street, I will get a little snippet of that. And how much I get of that will depend on how conscious I am, whether it's my stuff or whether it's his stuff. To really start to understand if something is yours or not. And because we live in the society that we do, we're a very anxious society, right? That's how it's kind of geared up. Everybody's on the go all the time. Everybody's doing all this stuff all the time. So the body actually doesn't get to rest and process the doing stuff out of the system. So it affects the nervous system. So one of the key things that I ask people to consider for themselves is this actually your stuff? Like, just take a moment, check in, and see whether it really is even your stuff.
And is it important to try and not take on that stuff, like that personal responsibility in terms of looking after your own stuff and kind of considerately pushing back on the stuff that's not yours? Or is it kind of our job to absorb some of that from the people around us?
So the way that I experience it for myself and my belief is that it's important for me to make sure that that person is taking own personal responsibility for it, right? So it's a bit like we're at the gym, I'm the personal trainer, but it's my client who actually wants to build the muscle. It's not up to me to get on the bar and press on the bench to build the muscle for that client, right? The client needs to do that for themselves. They need to experience that for themselves. They need to know what it feels like when there's too much weight. They need to understand what it feels like when there's too little. It's something that really comes down to if I take on that work for that client, it's not actually benefiting the client, right? It's only benefiting me. And in fact, because it's not my stuff, it can actually cause my body to react in a way that is disharmony, is eased, right? It's not at ease. And I guess that's where, in my belief, that's where disease comes from, because the body can't balance that and the body can't harmonize that. And process it. So really, it affecting the nervous system, particularly with fear. When fear jumps in, the body nervous system, the para and sympathetic nervous system, the switch gets flicked on, right? So the body's flooded with cortisol in a very chemistry, biological system that the human body is. The body gets flooded with cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And what happens then is that the heart beats up, the breath gets quicker, the mind races, and therefore the mind races to conclusions that are preferred, right? They're pre-known conclusions.
Right.
The neurological track, the runway in the brain lights up and it says, oh, I got an answer for you. Let's just go to this one. Right? So every time then that reaction or that situation comes up, the brain goes to what can be the worst case scenario for people. Yeah, my husband's going to drop out of the sky in a plane, right? That could be my first gone thought. And I know that you spoke earlier about whether thinking these negative thoughts actually then manifests it. In my understanding and in my belief, I don't believe that that's the case. If you were to, because in my belief, there's a little bit more of a complex understanding, so I'll try and make it as easy as possible to appreciate. But it's almost like if I was getting a bowl full of M&Ms and I put all the red ones in the bowl, and then my child walks in and has a whole bowl full of red M&Ms themselves, or multicolored M&Ms, all I would see is the red ones. Or like when you go and buy a new car, right? And you've just bought a new red car. And you go out there and all you see is red cars. Right.
You get what you focus on.
Right.
Or you see what you focus on.
Right. And so there is an element of being able to see it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're attracting it. Right. Because your reality is only linked to your belief. So you're actually, what you're thinking as your belief is what you're creating. That's where that comes from. Then there's a different matter of actually attracting what you are asking for into your reality. Right. They're two separate
whole
things.
other thing.
So in my book, even if that thought flashes up, what I like to do is I replace it with the scenario or the situation that I would like to have eventuate. It would be my husband returning home safe to me, walking through the front door, giving me a big hug and kiss. So that's what I will replace it with. And it's purely to clear that clear that other
pathway. Yeah.
Yeah, it's to clear the pathway. It's like getting a street sweeper out.
Yeah, and saying, actually, when this pops up next time, this is where we're going to go, to the happy place. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So any easy to follow tips for someone who's maybe having it's such a complex thing, I know, with, anxiety and fear and the inner critic stuff and intuition and gut feeling and all of that sort of thing. But is there kind of a quick tip if there's something that kind of keeps coming up for someone? I'll give you an example. My husband is ex-military. He was in Afghanistan for 8 months. And so, of course, I had this recurring, it was a dream, it was a daydream, it was a fear. And I guess, given the circumstances, it was quite a rational fear that I was going to have someone knock on the door in the middle of the night, or waiting for me at home when I got home from work to tell me that the worst had happened, or something like that. So that is a rational fear, in my opinion, and it was, something that happened. So not happened to me, but something that was happening to people, and sort of on the news all the time. So is there kind of a go-to thing to remember if someone's kind of getting a bit overwhelmed by that, wondering, is it fear, or have I been woken up in the middle of the night by a dream because it's actually something that's happened, and am I now to wait up and wait for this phone call? Like, is there kind of a quick way to kind of get through that, or is it really just about tapping into your own?
Yep. Okay. So when it's personally related, so when it's something that you see for yourself or something that you experience for yourself, not to do with somebody else, the easiest thing in both situations is to calm the breath first, calm the body, because the calming the body actually slows the brainwave states. And slowing that brainwave state down actually allows you to actually access the point of intuition.
Okay.
Because it sits in the theta brainwave state. Mm-hmm. Whereas most of the time our mind will operate in a daily basis in the beta, which is like the monkey mind, right? Mm-hmm. That's where that chatter lives. That's where that nasty thoughts and critic and stuff, that's where that lives. And the next brainwave state down from that is the alpha brainwave state, which is where people say, when I'm operating in flow, I just feel like everything just works and everything happens. Right? That's that state.
Right.
So then the state underneath that is the theta state. So it's actually, if we can slow the body down when it gets into a particular thought pattern like that, and just really do that with the calmness of the breath, and feel the breath as you're breathing in go all the way down to the very base of your spine. And you can push that breath in, have that breath going. And when you breathe in, bringing that breath all the way from the base of the spine, all the way back up, right? All the way through the heart, all the way through the top of the head and out. And that just really slows the body down from the top to the bottom to allow you just to calm the mind and really be able to see for yourself whether that's fear or whether that's intuition.
Right. So it takes you out of that fight or flight kind of situation and into a more logical but also a bit more grounded, so that if it is an intuition or if there is something more going on, you can really follow your gut feeling, or discount it as it is just a fear and it is just a sympathetic nervous system thing.
Yeah. So because we just need to watch whether the fear will actually jump into that neurological runway, that pathway, right, and be giving you something that is conditioned in you. And that's related to much deeper either life conditioning or whatever. So just really slowing down the breath, slowing down the mind. And the other thing, particularly if it's involving somebody else, like a loved one, hold that person in your mind about a feeling of unconditional love for them, right? And just really think about a time where you've been with that person. It might have been your wedding day, it might have been the day your child was born, but it was this wholeness, a feeling of overflowing unconditional love for that person. And to me, that really helps to hold that person in that state of receiving and hold that person in a state of love, right? Sometimes bad stuff really does happen.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm not saying by doing these exercises that bad stuff won't happen. But what I am saying is that your experience in that moment for yourself can be changed dramatically based on how you can calm and soothe yourself and how much love that you can hold the people around you in, and for yourself in that moment.
That's so interesting. And I think that whole, we kind of take for granted the, the deep breathing and count to 10 when you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed or anxious or fearful or something. That is sort of something we teach kids and then we forget to do ourselves as adults. And we kind of just jump to conclusions. And, unfortunately, it's just probably a sign of the society that we're in, that we see such bad stuff happening on the news and it's so normalized. So you just kind of, immediately, like I said, go to that place where that's what's happened, and that, you just make assumptions. And, I remember, when this was happening, when Glenn was away, that I would sit on the couch or I'd be going to sleep bawling my eyes out because I was so sure that it had already happened. I just worked myself into such a state that, and nothing happened. I was like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I think you just, get a bit carried away completely by accident sometimes. But I am interested, to sort of try and tap in myself. And I'm sure there's other people out there who, kind of, I feel like I sort of get some messages sometimes and I'm like, oh, I probably should start listening to this thing. Is this, a message or like a gut feeling, or whatever you want to call it, that I should kind of be listening to? But I've also got a fantastic imagination and I don't want that to run away.
Yeah. Well, the first step is awareness, Claire, and that's really where I ask people to start with. And just start you're in the gym, in the intuition gym. And the first step is just having awareness about what's coming up for you. When are these thoughts coming in? What's the situation that you're in? What are they related to? Who are they about? Are they about yourself? Like, just create some awareness and be observant about it.
Yeah.
You don't actually have to act on anything, right?
Right.
That's actually what free will is about. And that is the thing that really changes the outcome of what happens in your life and the reality you create for yourself. It's always going to be your choice. And even if you get something intuitively, you can still change the outcome of that thing because you have free choice.
Yeah.
That's your free will. So it really is just a matter of slowing down enough, being in that awareness space and being able to see what's coming up and why it's coming up, right? Not to read into the story and not to attach to it, but just really to come to a moment of quiet so that you can start to, retrain the brain to collect the evidence for new runways, right?
So interesting. And we could sit around and talk about this for absolutely hours, but I guess to, sort of bring it back into that recovering perfectionist kind of thing, I think, the main message that you've just talked about then is just, you don't have to have all the answers and you don't have to have it all figured out or have an exact roadmap of where it's going to go, but awareness is the first step of anything, really, but especially on this sort of a journey that you're talking about in terms of just being open to it if you want to be, if you're ready to be, and just noticing your thoughts and all of that sort of thing. So I think that's really interesting. So
that's it. It's not about the perfection, right? Start with small stuff.
That's it.
Test it out, and that's where the startup mentality comes from, because startup is about testing. Test your assumptions, see what happens. So recovering perfectionist, absolutely. Me too. Absolutely. And
I loved one of your very early messages that I remember we talked about, and you said, I'm just going to try this, and life is a startup, or life as a startup, I think was the message. And that, when we're doing a startup business, it's kind of the same as just trying life out. Like, you're just experimenting. And I think the same thing, like I'm a planner, I'm an organizer. I love that sort of stuff. But I think we can sometimes over plan, and that sets us up for failure because, we want to take a slightly different route. But if it's not on the plan, then we can't do it. And it doesn't allow us to follow the energy and the flow and all of that sort of thing. So I think that's really interesting. And I remember you saying once, I'm just going to do this, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, because nothing really matters, because time doesn't matter, and nothing really matters. And I was like, nothing really matters. Oh my God. And I've told so many people about that conversation, and I think it's just been awesome. It's awesome. Lovely chatting with you. And I just love having a bit of a hash. I'm sure we'll do this again sometime over many, many other topics. So, Leah, where can we find out more about you and your work and all of that sort of thing? We'll put all of this in the show notes as well for anyone who's wanting links and that sort of thing. But tell us a bit about you and where we can find out more.
So I guess the best place to jump over to is my website, which is leahwemben.com at the moment, because I got married in January, so I'm still in transition to Kearns.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I really, on there, I've got a resource that is your 5 intuitive types, and it's a quiz. And the outcome of the quiz is to actually make you aware of how the information is coming to you. So that's really, it's raising that awareness, and it's really coming into that space of seeing that it's coming to you in more than just one form than what you might think it would be.
Yeah, interesting. Love it. Thank you so much, Leah. It was awesome chatting with you. We'll wrap it up there. And like I said, we'll put some links in the show notes below, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Wonderful. Thanks, Claire, very much.
Thank you.